everybody. Today we're going to begin adding all the painted dots and lines to our pumpkins we created last week. However, before we start on our actual pumpkin paper, we're going to begin on a little practice sheet to try to get a better understanding of how to use these kind of liquid paint bottles here. So I'm going to pass back your painted pumpkin and then have you come grab one of these so then you can kind of remind yourself of the color that you chose last time, because you're going to want to use a paint color that's going to stand out on the paper. You also probably want to make sure that it doesn't blend in with your color oil pastel you chose last time, because we do want to make sure that these lines and shapes we created kind of pop out once we are done adding our dots. So I'm going to choose green because I feel like it's different than the blue and it will stand out nice on this purple here. So I'm going to set this aside and grab my little practice sheet. And to begin, I just want you to know that you will have a little bit of time with this. As soon as you tip it over, it's not going to start rushing out really, really fast. But if you just hold it up too long upside down, it will eventually drip out. The second thing I need you to know is we're not squeezing these bottles. You're almost going to just like tap it down to the paper or almost like draw with it to create our designs. Even when we get to these larger ones, you still won't have to really squeeze that much. So again, if I take out the cap, you'll notice that I can hold it up and it's not going to fall out. There is a small chance that this little bit of paint on the tip could have dried up since the last time it was used. So I do have a small little like paper clip by each color, and you can just simply poke that in the little nozzle, pull it back out, and you should be back in business, okay? So then please just make sure if you do that, that you leave these little paper clips at the containers with the paint so others can use them. So for instance, for these dots, I can simply just kind of touch it right to it. These are so small that I could basically just kind of use, as if I'm using like a bingo dauber, just kind of dab it on each one. Because I'm left-handed, I chose to start on the right and work to the left, making sure then that I don't touch on something that I've already made. If you're a righty, you're gonna wanna work the opposite way. Now, for these big ones, like I was saying, instead of squeezing on here, I'm gonna just start in the middle and I'll just kind of keep going around in a circle motion. If I go too fast, I might leave some little kind of spots in between. I'll kind of zoom in a little bit here for you. So I may have to kind of go back in to make sure I get all those areas covered up, but I still do not need to squeeze. If I glob on too much paint on here, my dots might just like crack and flake off of my painting when I'm all finished. So I just might take a little bit more time, but I just keep going around in a circular motion until I get it the size that I want. So try to see if you can develop some control on each of these different size circles. Then just kind of keep working your way down one line at a time. You can see it is possible for me to go left to right. I just then need to be more mindful of making sure my hand doesn't touch the paper. So just try to discover a method that works good for you. And of course, you're not limited to just these designs, but I want you to go over each one before we then begin our pumpkin sheet. So you can see here, I'm almost finished now with my last one. Then you're gonna raise your hand. I'll come check to see how you did on this little practice paper. And then I'll give you the go ahead to begin your pumpkin. Now we've been talking a lot about variety and contrast. So when it comes to our big pumpkins, we want to try to have each little shape and space be a little different than the last. Now, if you get to the point where you run out of ideas, you can repeat a design. Just try to have it kind of spaced out from one another. So if I have one design here and I run out by the time I get to here, I could repeat it again over here. But you'll just kind of take it one space at a time. So go slow. We really want to try to keep these areas from mixing up with one another, and you just want to try to create some variety as you do so. I'll just do one more here and then I'll show you an example. Somebody yesterday came up with this kind of design. I thought that was really cool. If you ever get stuck, feel free to just take a second to check out the other side of the classroom too, to see what some of your friends are coming up with. Once you get all of them filled up, then just raise your hand so I can come peek at it. Then we'll try to get a spot for it on the drying rack, making sure before we put these bottles away that we cover up the cap. Make sure you get to click on there nice. and then we want to carefully bring these to the wooden drying rack so that way they lay nice and flat as they dry. Here's one that I finished a different day. You can see I have an assortment of lines and circles. So have fun and be creative.